The Central Florida Tourism Oversight District has replaced the Reedy Creek Improvement District that once governed the land which the Walt Disney World Resort now sits on. While some might be surprised that it took 55 years for something to be done, what's even more surprising is that the Walt Disney Company has been bragging about their craftiness for nearly a century. Let's talk about that on That Park Place. This is Jonas J. Campbell. I'm an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and today we're talking about the Reedy Creek Improvement District, the special taxing district that was set up by an act of the Florida legislature in 1967. The act was supposed to enable the construction of an experimental prototype community of tomorrow, but instead we got a bunch of hotels, theme parks, and a retail shopping location. The Walt Disney Company seemed to know that one day there would be question on Reedy Creek, so they set up a series of flimsy substantiations to make regulators go away if they started asking questions. But at the same time, they were putting up signs inside their own theme parks to brag about what they had done. Let's get into it. Just to add to this, I don't know if somebody wants to look it up. They literally put all of those entities. There's a huge sign inside of Walt Disney World where they brag about the Reedy Creek Improvement District and all of the entities that were set up.
It's on the windows on Main Street. I mean,
exactly.
This is part of its illustrious history. And to be fair to Disney, they were
it wasn't illegal. It was not illegal. Now setting up a shell corporation is not illegal. However, they knew that if they knew it was Disney, the prices would go crazy. And
absolutely.
The reason.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Andrew.
No. I was just saying. I mean, there's a famous story of Walt Disney trying to get Disneyland, right? And they had a conversation at Knott's Chicken Restaurant, and they were a little bit too boisterous, and somebody picked up the property before they could. So Walt always knew. It's like, okay, let's keep this stuff secret. Let's keep this stuff, out of the public consciousness. Now, obviously, there were some financial benefits in actually doing that, but legal mindset. Go ahead.
Walt did pass away before Reedy Creek was established, where it was
right.
But I think there's a certain amount that everybody knew that, look, we're going to finesse them on futurism. We're going to finesse them on urban development, because we know that that's what was hot in the 60s. Just like woke is hot now, right? Woke is really hot now. City planning was hot in the 60s. So they said, look, we're going to tell them this is what we're going to do, and we're going to sell them this bill of goods. But what we're really going to do is build theme parks. We never planned to have permanent residents at Disney World, despite the fact that I do well believe they thought they were going to have housing for those workers. So those workers were going to be able to live close to where they worked. Instead, what you have today is now 100,000 workers that are commuting in on roads that Disney does not contribute a single dime to. Yep. Disney does not contribute a dime in impact fees. They did the money just on the hotels alone, not the theme parks. Just the hotels, they would owe $130 million. That's uninflated dollars.
This report details
right
$130 million right there.
Yep.
And that's just to Orange County.
Here we go.
Not Osceola County.
Right.
Same page right here. Page 12. RCID built no workforce housing or schools and did not develop any public services directed to anyone but Disney tourists. RCID never made Disney pay impact fees, as all other developers in Orange and Osceola County must pay right here. Transportation impact fees linked to hotel rooms alone would cost Disney $130 million in Orange County today. So that's hanging out there.
If you look at the RCID and what they were entitled to, and if you see the Epcot model, you see churches, you see schools, you see all the
hospitals,
public accommodations, right? Hospitals that you would ever need in order to support this infrastructure. You see housing, you see a people mover system to get people from the urban core right there to the residential areas that surrounded Epcot Center, if you will. And they were able to set up their own courts. They were able to set up their own police department. They were able to set up their own fire, which some of these benefits they've used to varying degrees over the years for various reasons, but it never amounted to the city that was promised back in the early 1960s. And it's incredible to actually have this audit conducted by independent auditors, by the way, on behalf of the SIFTOD, detail this out. Everything that we already knew that was not front page news before the dear old governor got involved has now been detailed in what Legal Mindset and others have been dealing with for decades.
By the way,
and the people they got, by the way, the people they got as experts, these are all real experts. They got a constitutional law Chad, an absolute master of constitutional law. They got one of the best forensic accountants ever. I've worked with him once. He's amazing. Very good forensic accountant for the financials. They got the best planning folks who know special districts in Florida. Kimley Horn, I've worked with them very often when I was there. They know special districts. They know planning in Florida. And they also had an independent advisor, just an overall independent financial advisor that did the rest of the auditing there. So they had a bunch of very, very talented individuals that are coming through and saying in all of these fields, what they did was wrong.
All right. I have to point out, I'm getting a lot of questions through the back channels and also directly here. We're going to start with Tommy Tables for 14 Canadian dollars. How easily will Disney defenders be able to dismiss this all as an alt-right conspiracy and bury the story? Will we see any real world consequences here? Facts matter, but it seems spin matters more. Andrew?
Well, let me say this right away. The reason why the Disney defenders, I love you use Disney defenders because that's actually the name that those really crazy people wearing the mouse shirts showing up the CFTOD.
He had to
they're actually
slips.
Pink slips. The reason they've been talking about cronyism is projection. It's because they knew this audit was eventually coming and they knew they would be accused of that. So all Disney wants to do is say, we filed our lawsuit first. We called you a crony first. You're just calling us that because we called you that. They're like petulant children that think that because they do that first nullifies the facts. But the facts actually matter, particularly in Florida, and particularly to Florida and federal judges, which are going to look at the facts and say, this federal case, you got 80 pages of very strong material on why this should never have been a thing. So
Absolutely.
We're going to dismiss this case. We're going to rule in their favor in the state case. We're going to get rid of these 11th hour agreements, which were done in the black of the night with lawyers that this audit says were violating their professional responsibility, their ethics rules as a lawyer. This is why I get so worked up. It disgusts me to see lawyers like that. They're vile people. Look, listen, I don't care what you do in your personal life, but in your professional life, you should have a code. These people did not follow any sort of code, and they did it knowingly. They did it knowing they were breaking their responsibility by representing both parties.
Well, okay, so we've got a bunch of these questions coming in, Andrew, that's fascinating. Did you want to follow up on that, Vash?
Well, go ahead, Jonas. I think we have a lot of questions coming in.
We do have a lot of questions, but Scotty Joe for $5. Why does this RCID sound like old company towns from the early 1900s? This sounds nuts how corrupt it was from this report.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's the whole point. And actually, the report documents that. The reason why if this was such a good idea, there would be a million RCIDs all around America. Why aren't there? Why is there no other special district like RCID exists? Because it's a horrible idea which opens itself up to rampant corruption. This is the last company town. It was. Ron DeSantis ended that. It's done. The company town is now dead in America.
This is why Disney donated to all kinds of politicians across the political spectrum in Florida and try to keep the lowdown on this because they knew they had something that was extremely valuable and that could not be replicated. And if there was any public scrutiny applied to it, it wouldn't necessarily pass muster.
Now, I do want to point out, I brought this up on the screen. Disney also received control over 2 cities. Again, cities in quotes. They have no actual employees. These cities, all of the employees of the city were basically contracted from RCID. These cities were also run by a single person that was contracted by the company to control both. That is illegal. That is unconstitutional, according to the state of Florida.
And Florida law,
and Disney employees rented mobile home plots from Disney. So if I'm understanding the section correctly, they were given a 5-year lease they were deeded the property for 5 years, and at the end, Disney was the only company that could buy that property back, and they could not hold on to that property after 5 years. Go ahead.
And in addition to that, Disney violated the law by paying their taxes. That is a direct bribe of a public official. It's essentially giving an unauthorized money payment directly to a public official by paying their taxes. Right. So they were supposed to own this for voting purposes, but Disney directly reimbursed them for this. It's nuts. It's absolute
never in writing,
notorious bribery.
Cash.
Yes, as Robert Barnes says, it's a great quote. Absolutely great. And they just didn't even think about it because there's sheer hubris, right? That they thought they would never be caught. Really
I got another one to throw here, and then Culture, you've got the best one, so I'm going to let you go last there. Do you think Walt actually intended a city, and after his death, it changed?
So people have been divided on this. There's some people that find Walt more complicit or not, and I get it. People want to love Walt, and look, I love the ideas Walt did, and I love a lot of the things he did. But Walt may not necessarily have been a city planner. So he has his strengths. Everybody's got their strengths and their weaknesses. A lot of folks say Progress City was never practical and would never have actually happened, and the budget to actually make it to spec was impossible and never going to happen, whatever. But we will never really know. I think that certainly Walt knew that at least it was going to be an exaggeration. I don't think, now he may have still wanted to do a lot of the things that they said there. For example, I think he wanted at least employee housing. Now, he was intending, I believe, to lease those to them or to create some sort of rental agreement whereby they had to be employees when they were renting it. So there was some level of control. So Disney never lost control. But certainly Walt's vision was never effectualized. Any sort of city or planning that went anything like a city, that was all dead with the passing of Walt. The closest thing you get is Celebration, which was intentionally de-annexed from Disney, which was the district which I actually represented.
There you go.
Culture, you got one.
I got a couple actually, but we're going to start with this one. This one comes from one of the folks behind the scenes at That Park Place who does a great job there. Asks a question specifically that has Andrew been asked if Florida was abdicating its governing responsibilities for the last 40 years and if that'll mitigate the potential damage from Disney's RCID?
So that's actually a really good question because it's fascinating and it teaches you kind of how local government law works, because most people don't think about it that hard. You're just like, well, it works, right? But all powers that are not given to the federal government are given to the states. All entities, whether it's a city, county, special district, whatever, that are not states, all they are is a piece of the power of the state. Okay, so they are a fraction of the power of the state. They're a slice of the state that is at a local level. So to an extent, all governments are slight abdications of power, if you will. But that does not get you out of law that applies to any government. They apply to all governments, cities, counties, special districts. There's nothing about the creation of RCID that is unique in terms of it being formed by the legislature. The legislature has formed many districts. They just gave them more powers. That doesn't get them out of doing things that are illegal under Florida criminal code, stuff like bribery, stuff like misuse of public funds. There's no exemption for that in the RCID statute. There was none for that. They were supposed to follow all the case law and the statutes regarding criminal offenses for public officials.
I love the idea that they said, okay, well, we've been committing a crime for 55 years. Does that make it okay? No, it does not.
Free speech, though.
Thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. This clip was a part of our now regular Thursday live stream, which starts at noon Eastern time. Of course, just hit the notification bell if you'd like YouTube to just tell you when that is. Like this video if you like this video. If you know someone who is interested in what we're talking about, well, then maybe you should share this link with them. And of course, please consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.